I think what's going to happen is actual life is going to come back. And I think actual life is going to make a resurgence, and it's going to be exciting again. It is exciting, but it's exciting while you're doing this. And I think all this sort of generative AI stuff is going to create so much content, so diluted, so not real, that actual life becomes what you want.
On today's episode of the Grab Matters podcast, we welcome on a very special guest, Chase Heavner. Chase Heavner is a former professional wakeboarder who, after a good career riding, switched over to the video production side of things. Today we're talking about what it's like riding for Neptune, what that team was like, as well as the new crew. Who was the new crew? What was the new crew about? Kind of their ideas and how they kind of ruffled some feathers in the industry back in the day. We are also talking about how a pine cone got him disqualified from a pro tour stop. Aside from his video parts, we also dive into movies, specifically Mayday, Decline of the Water Ski Monopoly, Pre-Pop, a bunch of others that he either wrote in or helped out with. And also his thoughts on the media landscape right now compared to what it was like back then. We're also talking Alliance Wakeboarding Magazine and how he was involved in the early days, some of the funny stuff they did back in the day when it comes to articles and stuff like that. Towards the end of the pod, we do talk a little bit about foiling and how he has kind of gotten into foiling recently and what he's seen that it kind of provides him that, you know, is similar to what wakeboarding was back when he wrote a lot. I just want to give a big thank you to all of the Patreon members. Your guys' support really helps keep this podcast going. So thank you so much for your guys' support. If you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, joining the Patreon is the best way to do so, as well as supporting the brands that support this show. Without further ado, let's dive into another episode of the Grab Matters podcast.
I approve waterboarding. They're talking about wakeboarding. The thing about wakeboarding, every trick is an invert.
Backside.
One side, air railings.
A new dimension.
All right, we're back. Another episode of the Grab Matters podcast. Today we welcome on a very special guest, Chase Heavner. How's it going?
Good. Very good. Happy to be here.
Stoked to have you here. So, I mean, I do start off with some typical first questions. I'm curious your thoughts on wake pants.
Wake pants. Are we saying, is this a yes or no scenario, or you just want to know my thoughts on wake pants?
Both.
So I would say wake pants, it's a no for me, strictly because it's there's no function. I'm a big function guy. So if they had like some function for them, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. But
Summer sport. Why do you need pants?
yeah.
Okay. I like it.
But, you know, it's the Shane thing, you know, so it's kind of like I'm down with it just because he was throwing stuff out there at that time.
Absolutely. Could you go a little closer with the mic?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So have you ever worn a pair, though?
Never
Okay.
worn wake
It's a good claim.
Well, maybe I have. I don't know. There's probably a picture out there of me in wake pants.
All right. Favorite grab?
Favorite grab? I would say a crail grab.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To do and to see?
A half cab crail grab.
Half cabin. Okay. I like that answer. I don't think most people don't say the spin. They just go straight up.
Yep.
Grab. What are your thoughts? What are your current thoughts on the Rayleigh?
Current thoughts on the Rayleigh. Man, Murray does a great Rayleigh.
Probably the best.
He makes it look fun. And whenever I see him do one, I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think when I see Murray do them, I feel like it reminds me of the teeter hang-ups where you're like upside down. Like he's probably getting full spinal like extension, you know.
I mean, it looks fun. Like when he does one, I'm like,
He's like he's flying. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. But I mean, yeah, I will never do one. I've never done one. I've tried them, but I could never get the mechanics of it. It was just hard falls.
like you couldn't come back down.
No, I've never done one. Yeah, so.
Wow.
I know.
On the boat, I've never done one either.
Yeah, he called me one time to try and this was like a couple years ago. Murray called me. I was like, "Come over, I'm going to teach you a railing." I'm like, "That is not happening, dude." Like, I have no plans on doing that.
Yeah, especially on like a fully loaded G. Like,
yeah.
Goodbye. Is Tim Tebow a cool guy?
He is. Yeah, he's a really good dude. We're friends, and it's been really good. Shot that documentary with him. I think it's almost 10 years ago now. But yeah, he's a really nice guy, and it's fun to hang out with. So
run through that documentary because I feel like a lot of people are probably just heard Tim Tebow. What are you talking about?
So we shot a documentary with Tim right after he graduated college, and we followed him from college to the pros, so to when he got drafted. So we were with him every single day. I think it was about 4 months. I think it was about 4 months, and it was me and Staker, and we were family friends before, and so we kind of pitched him the documentary, and he was into it, and it was pretty cool, man. I mean, like, it's a wild, that year particularly was a wild ride for him. But it was just cool getting to know each other in that way. And like me and Matt had kind of been, used to traveling like that, used to being on the road with athletes and that sort of thing. So it really worked well together. But it was fun. I mean, it's one of those like once in a lifetime things,
It's wild.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really cool.
So you keep in touch somewhat?
Yeah,
these
yeah,
days?
absolutely. Like, and he has a big golf tournament in Jacksonville that we go to every year and stuff. So it's fun.
I mean, I guess you spend that much time with the guy. Like, you're gonna get
no,
at least a little bit close.
he's awesome.
Did a pine cone ever get you disqualified from a tour stop?
Yeah, so that's a funny story. So I was trying to think about when this was. I think it might have been my first year on tour, but my guess is it was after the new crew stuff. So I think that's my second year on tour, and we were rebellious, and me and one of my friends, I don't remember who it was, but somebody, probably some wakeboarder, were out. It was not Indianapolis. There was another one on the East Coast, like inland somewhere, and the riders would go by, and the shoreline's right there. So when they cut out, they're coming within like 10 or 12 feet of the shore. And so we have this wiffle ball bat, and there's pine cones everywhere because there's pine trees next to the run. And so we're just like throwing pine cones, just hitting, seeing if we can hit somebody. There's all our buddies riding, so they thought it was funny. And I just threw one up and just hit the sweet spot with the wiffle ball bat, and this thing went line drive into the boat, and into the boat. And it was the first time that a Sports Illustrated photographer had been on tour, and it hit the Sports Illustrated photographer, or it hit his camera or something, and he was not happy about that. And so I immediately knew this was not good, and so I kind of we stopped, obviously, and like 10 minutes later, somebody comes running around being like, "Who did that?" And I was like, "I did it." And he goes, "Well, we all talked, and you have to be kicked off at least this tour stop because of what you did." And that was not good. It's funny now.
A 1-game suspension from the
Yeah.
tour?
Yeah. I like jokes that are funny in like 10 years. So it wasn't funny then, but it was like now I'm like, that's pretty
It's
funny.
hilarious.
Yeah,
now.
it's pretty good now.
There's not many people, at least you would know more than me, but that have been suspended from a tour stop. The only other one I can think of is Phil Sylvan, for one.
Oh, really? Was he? For what?
I guess he was talking down about Mastercraft or something.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe they didn't implement it. I'm pretty sure they did, though. I was talking to Garrett, I think, about it.
Yeah.
And they're like, that doesn't happen.
I mean, I get it. I mean, it's like, that was certainly not an appropriate thing to be doing, but.
Yeah.
But it's action sports, dude. It's X Games.
Yeah, this isn't golf.
Extreme
man.
sports.
Exactly. Make it a little more extreme with some pine cones.
Yeah.
Flying everywhere. Is it true you can run 19 miles an hour?
Run 19 miles. I did a 5-minute mile on my 40th birthday. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got into running about 6 years ago, and me and my friend were like, well, let's see how fast we can go. And so we trained for like 6 months, and I did a 5-minute mile.
Like train for just a mile?
Yeah, just the mile. I mean, I was running a lot, but then we trained for the specific mile on a track, and we timed it. I think I was like 5:10 or 5:13.
Yeah.
My buddy beat the 5-minute mile. I'll never do it again. Like halfway through, I'm just like, this is never happening again. So I might as well go for it.
There's only 2.5 more minutes left. I might as well just do it.
It was fast, dude. It was like one of those things. It's the threshold of my athletic ability, and you're just in this weird state of just like, there's nothing left, and you're somehow running. It's weird. But it's cool.
That is, because I was watching a old Stokemaster video with Jeff McKee and Garrett Cortez.
Oh, yeah.
They said you put a helmet on with like a GPS tracker or something, and they clocked you at 18 or 19 miles
Oh,
an
that
hour.
might have been a street race. We used to do street races on when we would go to the bars.
Yeah.
And I'm a sprinter.
Yeah.
And so I was always challenging people to street races, and so about 1:30 in the morning. There's a street race somewhere in Winter Park.
What distance are we looking at? 40-yard dash?
Like a light to light.
Okay.
Street
like
light to street light, yeah.
Okay. And you were holding it down out there in the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the early days before we get into a lot of other stuff. But, I mean, do you remember the first time wakeboarding? First time kind of getting into it?
Yeah. I grew up on Lake Maitland, and I still live on Lake Maitland today. That's one of the Winter Park chain of lakes. And so I grew up water skiing. We had a center console, and, you live on a lake, you just walk out your backyard, and you're just into water sports, so you kind of do whatever. And I was kneeboarding, doing all the fun stuff, and wakeboarding came along, and my first wakeboard was a Hyperlight, or my friend got the Hyperlight compression molded board with the bungees, and then I ended up getting the Big Air, and it was just, it was one of those things where, I'm sort of like everybody who gets into a sport, is just like, it's all you can think about, you just want to keep, it opens up this world that was not open before, of being on a boat. And so, we just got really into it, and luckily I had friends on the lake, and so it was, this is the other thing. I don't know how we did anything before, like a cell phone. Like, how you link up to go around? How did we get together with our friends before cell phones? I don't know, but we did it. I guess you would call them on the landline. Yeah. Plan for the next day or something. I don't know. Or you see them at school and you're like, or something. Like, I don't know. Going ride tomorrow? Yeah. I don't know. Anyways. So yeah, we got into it. Those were kind of like my first boards, and then Flight 69 came out, and then I had that board and kind of went from there. Okay. So were you into other board sports growing up? Were you skateboarding? Obviously, you're in Florida, so not like snowboarding, but I was a big basketball player. Okay. Yeah? Yeah. So I grew up, and I started playing basketball, and I was like obsessed with basketball. I like super into Michael Jordan, and just that was my identity. I was a basketball player, and as every young kid growing up who plays sports thinks they can be a professional athlete. I thought I could be in the NBA, and at 5'7" or whatever, 5'9" or whatever. Point guard, maybe? Yeah, maybe. Well, there were some short point guards back in the day, and so I was playing basketball, and actually wakeboarding interfered with my basketball career. Okay. So I was taking basketball very seriously. My parents were into me having something I was interested in, and wakeboarding sort of like threw that off. And I like tried out for like JV basketball, and I didn't make the team. And that was the linchpin for me, because I saw wakeboarding and I was doing it doing a lot, and I was like, I think I can probably be a professional wakeboarder. Okay, so I'm curious on that, because like obviously traditional sports, there's a very concrete laid out foundation of like, you can be a professional athlete here. Mm-hmm. Can be, probably won't be, but like there is that, there are athletes who get paid. Yeah. In wakeboarding at that time, did you see a path where you're like, yeah, I can become a pro and get paid and do this? I think that was aspirational. It wasn't necessarily like a big industry then. I mean, it was Scott and Gator and Darren and a couple other people. There was maybe like a handful, 8 pro riders, but you're on a path, and that's just like the aspiration or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's funny because I've had a couple conversations with former pros who have kids now, and their kids are like, I want to be a YouTuber or do something, that's not of the norm of like what you would aspire to be as like your career. And I go, well, imagine what your parents thought when you told them you wanted to be a pro wakeboarder. Exact same thing, probably. And I mean, like, I had to like sit my parents down and be like, I'm not playing basketball anymore. I want to wakeboard. And and they're like, well, why do you want to do that? And I'm like, well, I think I can be good at this, and I think maybe there could be a career here. I don't know, but I'm like 12, talking about this stuff, Yeah. So it was a big shift, for me and for, my parents who were invested in basketball and I'd been doing all this stuff, to just go and let your kid go out and ride a boat all day. Yeah, do this weird new board sport that isn't really established yet. So I guess run through that first couple sponsors. I mean, when do you pick up a first sponsor? So I was wakeboarding a lot in high school, and I was trying to figure out these timelines, but I was probably definitely in middle school, and then I got serious about it in like 9th grade. And Matt Staker went to school with me, so we all went to the same high school. And he was wakeboarding, but he was like wakeboarding. He had a Maristar at his house, but he was like, him and his buddies were like dragging themselves behind like their lake on a 4-wheeler. Like they were just like, they were doing fun stuff. And so he had gotten into it, and he had heard that I got into it. And I remember the day he came up to me in high school, and him and my buddy Pat walk up to me and they go, "Hey, I heard you wakeboard." And I was like, "Yep." He's like, "Well, there's this contest in Oklahoma, Florida, and we're going to go ride in it. Do you want to like ride every day for the next 2 weeks to go train for this contest?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And so we've literally been friends. He came over to my house yesterday and like surfed, you know, so like we're still like really, really good friends. And so we did that, and we trained every day and learned a bunch of stuff. I had already done a couple flips, and Staker had learned a couple. And that I went and rode in the outlaw division, and Anthony Monaco was like the guy. He was like the guy to beat in the outlaw division. And so I think I got third or fourth or something. I hit all my inverts, and Bill McCaffrey was there, and so I knew who Bill was. You know, I'd watched Spray, I'd watched Gravity Sucks. You know, those were like the big movies back then. And he was in there, so I knew who he was. And I was just sitting down, and he walked up to me, and he goes, "Hey, I'm Bill." And I go, "Hey, I'm Chase." And he said, "Well, I'm here for Neptune. I'd like to know if you want to ride for Neptune." And I was like, "Of course." You know, I've never ridden a Neptune board. This is the Impala. That was the only board they had out at the time. And so he said, "All right, here's a board." Like on the day, I think he gave me a board.
Yeah.
And I just started riding it. And that's how that was my first sponsor, was Bill. So I'm still friends with Bill today.
Yeah.
So I talked to him yesterday, you know, so it's just like, it's cool. Like just the relationships, all of this also has like brought, you know,
totally.
Like really good friends with everybody.
So, I mean, you mentioned tricks on that, a couple inverts. Was that basically what you're doing, the basic inverts and maybe 360 or something?
I think I had a scarecrow. I think I had a back roll to revert, half cab. I mean, I was probably like 50% rolls and then a 360.
Okay.
Yeah. Thing.
That makes sense. So,
you know, outlaw stuff.
Yeah, dude, just outlaw things out there. When does that progression with Neptune? Because, like, how does that turn into kind of being officially on the team and, like, actually getting paid?
Well, there wasn't a team at that point.
Yeah.
Bill. And so they were building a team, and part of that team was CC, and part of that team was me, and Matt had gotten sponsored as well. And Scott Joby was on the team. And so I think, I don't know. I sort of like, it took me a while to really, Bill was the person, he was the team manager. And so that was my contact with Neptune at the time. And then I think there was a small salary then. I mean, I'm like $500 or $600 or something, or maybe even just photo incentive. I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah, that was definitely the start of like being a paid athlete. And I was in whatever, 10th grade or 11th grade or something. So it's kind of like, this is wild.
Yeah.
You're in high school getting paid to skim across the water behind a boat.
Skim across the water.
Pretty cool.
Exactly. Very cool. We got an early Patreon question from Ollie Jerome.
Oh, wow.
So thanks to everyone on the Patreon. Your guys' support really means a ton. Helps keep this podcast going. He wants to hear about what led you to go finless back in the day. He goes, "You're the first rider I noticed to do this on his Neptune board in Mayday," is when he first saw it.
Okay. Should we break out?
Yeah, break out the fins.
The
fins you don't need. Let's break those.
Heaven or
out.
fins, dude. Rainbow fins. Yeah, so that board in particular was my first pro model, and I think we were, as a group of people at Neptune and as a group of people that I was hanging out with, were really trying to do things differently. And part of that was the boards that we rode. And, you know, like Thomas came out with his pro model, and it was like a 158 or something crazy. Like, it was almost unrideable. Like, he could ride it, but I tried to ride it, and I was like, this thing is insane. And so, like, it was just more like, for me, I'm really into, like, hyper-precise boards, and I was very into snowboarding. And so the idea with that board that we came out with was that it sort of acted like a snowboard, right? So the bottom of it was it was shaped almost like a U, right? So the edges came down, and they actually came down to a very sharp point at the corner. So that was your fin on heel.
Yeah.
But then when you were flat, you had the ability to like spin like on a snowboard. So like when you're snowboarding, when you're flat, it's very like loose, and then the second you get on edge, it rails in. And so that was the idea. And so I think for me, I'm always trying to do stuff that's just sort of either different or unlock something, you know, and that was certainly that. And we were competing with the Super Squirt at that time, so that was the answer to that. That board was small and wide, and so that was sort of the Neptune answer to the Squirt. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just realized I didn't need a 2.5-inch fin at the time.
Yeah.
You know?
You're getting on edge, no problem.
Yeah.
You had it. So.
Yeah, and we were kind of messing around with riding snowboards on the water. I don't know. It felt right. And there's a funny story about that board in particular, though. So Billy brought that board, the prototype for that board, to my house over. And it still is to this day the best board I've ever ridden, the prototype. And Billy's very like, if he has something that's like going to be a secret, he doesn't let you know about it. And then the second he's like, here, you can see this now. And then when you're done, you're not seeing it ever again, kind of thing. And so, so he unsheathed this prototype, and I got to ride it. And I was like, this is it, because it was my pro model, right? And so I was like, that's the board. I rode it for 10 minutes, and I was like, that is the best finless board I've ever ridden. Yeah. Finless, whatever. And so they took it. Him and Tony Lagosche came to my house, who's a slingshot now. And they took the board, and from the time that my pro model came out to the time that I had ridden that prototype, Neptune had let go of Billy, and they let go of a lot of the team riders. And so I had become, I think, the only team rider at the time. And from that point, they had taken the board and done some weird stuff to it. And so the molds got all messed up, and the rocker at the tip and tail started doing this. And I got the first board back as like first production model, and it was not rideable. Yeah. I was just like, this isn't it, you know? And so we worked really hard to get it to like a place that was rideable. But it still was never that board. It was never the first one I rode. Yeah. So it was just like, man, if that thing ever really made it, it would have been pretty cool.
Dang, that's a bummer.
I know. But from that, you know, those are like stepping stones, you know, and it's like that was sort of one of those things where like, oh, people don't need fins, and then all of a sudden all these boards have like tiny little like built-in these things, you know. So I don't know. It's just fun. I like testing stuff and doing weird stuff and seeing it works. So.
Yeah, that's inside the mind of a foiler, I think, right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's we got another Patreon question.
Okay.
We're talking, you know, kind of technical aspects of boards, and we got one from Bill Porter here.
Oh, wow.
He says, Chase and Neptune were one of the first of my knowledge to bring a 4x4 hole pattern to wakeboarding. And he wants to know why you feel that didn't become a staple in the industry.
I don't know. That was on that board. That was on the pro model. That's another thing. That was a snowboard thing. So that was, I don't know why. It makes sense because we would have G-bolts on there, and the G-bolts had to have these like long things that kept your boots down or whatever. Probably weight, and there was definitely some cracking issues. You know, I think it's more holes in a board. But that's a really good question. I don't know why that never took off. Yeah. But I was looking at that yesterday. I was like, oh, yeah, that thing had a 4x4.
Yeah, he brought that board in when I had him on the podcast the other day.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I haven't seen that
It was definitely, like, way ahead of its time. Like, to be putting something like that out into the market then was just like, what is this, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Interesting.
I don't know why.
Some things just don't stick.
Yeah.
So what happened to Neptune, I guess?
You know, I don't know. I think I got let go towards the end of my career. And Neptune is Straight Line. So Neptune and Straight Line were the same company. And I think there was a snowboard company in there as well. And I don't know what happened to him. I sort of stopped being in contact with them at all, really, after I got let go. So, but it was a fun ride, I guess, while we were there doing it.
You got a pro model. I mean, it's cool.
It's funny because it's like, when I think back on it now, it's like, who let these kids make decisions for their business? Like, what are you thinking?
I'm in high school.
Yeah, like, I'm a high school kid, and they're asking me what I want to do for the thing they have to go sell, which is just like, this is crazy. But it all makes sense in the context of like what they're selling. But it's funny to think about, like, even with all the companies that I rode for, it's just like the freedom we had to do what we did, and just to like let these kids just take it and do it, you know, make magic or whatever. It was just like, I run a couple businesses in my life, and I don't know if I would take that risk.
It's a big one, right?
It's a big risk.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
You just mentioned some sponsors. What would you say was your highest paying sponsor over the years?
Probably Neptune. They were back then the board sponsor was the main.
Yeah, big one.
So I'd say Neptune was definitely my main sponsor. And then I rode for Billabong and Hurley. And then
You had some Reef in there too.
Reef, and then Arnett. A lot of that was through Scott Bouchard. So Scott Bouchard, I kind of met Scott around the same time as I was becoming an athlete through Neptune. I think it was probably within a year of meeting Billy. And I think, you know, one of the things that like we all tried to do is that wakeboarding at the time had a very specific trajectory, right? It was obviously a part of water skiing. It was a water skiing sport. It was a boat sport. But from a sponsorship level, like all me and my friends were like skaters and snowboarders and surfers, and I was a basketball player or whatever. But like I did all those sports, and that's a very different sponsorship company, you know, or the company sponsoring riders are very different. And so like I think that was like one of our goals was like to really try to bring in other like companies in surf, skate, or whatever into like seeing wakeboarding and that sort of thing. So it was a big deal for me at least, and I think I always thought it was a big deal for like Arnett and Billabong and Hurley and those guys to be like a part of our careers, you know, because it's like they see value in what we're doing, you know, and
these are big brands,
big brands, and big brands with reputations, you know, that are like, you know, like wakeboarding back then was not necessarily like the coolest thing in the world, you know, so it was sort of like I just always thought that was a big deal, you know.
Let's talk about that, wakeboarding not being the coolest thing in the world, because you mentioned, you know, part of water skiing, ski boarding, wakeboarding. Mm-hmm. This is a phase of the sport that is definitely interesting to talk about, I think, and you were very, you know, an integral part of all this. So let's talk new crew.
Okay.
What was the new crew?
So this is another thing where it's like, who gives these kids 4 pages in a magazine to say whatever they want? So we were riding. We knew a lot of the editors at Wakeboarding Magazine, Tony Smith, Heather Lee.
There you go.
And we had all started hanging out together. Me and Matt are very good friends, best friends at this point, and we became friends with Thomas through wakeboarding, and we also had our own little crew, like Andrew Cairns and a couple other guys, and so we all rode together all the time, and so they sort of put us all together, and we're like, you guys are the future of wakeboarding, like this is where we want it to go, and so the new crew was not our name, like we didn't come up with that. That was like the name of the article, but they said, here's 4 pages, write whatever you want. And so like me and Staker, I'm pretty sure we like hand wrote this thing, and it's one of those things, you know, like when you write one of those like just those real beefy emails, it's just got a lot of like emotion in it, and you just slam that enter key down and just like, let's see what happens. It was kind of one of those things, you know, where it's just like, I mean, I read it the other day and I'm like, what are we even talking about? Like, this is ridiculous. But you have to take into context like what was happening at that time. So we were getting into contests. Contests were where you had 25 seconds to do 5 tricks, and if you grabbed it, didn't matter. If you didn't land it clean, it really didn't matter. It was that you did the trick and then you turned around and you came and did the other 25 seconds. And so it was very much like a trick ski format.
And these were it was still points based.
Points.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, like so it was like if you did a back roll, that's 800 points, and however good you did it was like you got 750 or whatever. And so that didn't feel like what we were doing, you know. And it felt like a traditional sport, right? And with wakeboarding, or with most action sports, there is this element of enjoyment. You know, there's this element of like you are experiencing something that you really enjoy doing, and this board is unlocking this experience for you, and you get to go do it. And a contest, at least back then, was very mechanical and very, very like a race almost, you know, or whatever, like a gymnastics feat. And so it just didn't, that whole side of wakeboarding did not feel like what we were doing. And that whole side of wakeboarding was not really catching the attention of, like what I was talking about earlier, with like other sponsors or other companies, you know. And there were people doing it, like Scott and Gator, like those dudes were doing some insane stuff back then. And they were, you know, they were competing, but that wasn't the objective. You know, like the objective was to go huge, and the objective was to invent new tricks and like do all these things. And so, I think what we really looked up to Scott, and we really looked up to Gator as like riders, and so that was like our focus. We weren't focused on tournaments. We were focused on like, those guys are doing what we want to do. And we all started hanging out together and became really good friends. And we all think we're really funny. And so, so part of our relationship is just making each other laugh, and whoever could like make each other laugh the hardest, you know, like kind of was just like the cooler dude. And so like, that was the new crew thing, was just like, let's have a good time. Let's see what happens kind of thing, you know? Yeah. So we like wrote all this stuff down, wrote the rules or whatever. Like, here's who, you know, whatever. The rope length is a specific length to like what people would ride in contests, right? And we didn't want to ride in contests. We wanted to ride long ropes and go do all these crazy things. And like the shorts thing was like, everybody was wearing shorts.
I mean, we'll go over. I have all the rules written down here. I'm curious, do you remember them all by? I mean, you just mentioned two.
So let's see. No Rayleighs. That was the number one.
That was number one,
right? And I think that was sort of like, I don't know why we didn't like Rayleighs, but I think it was such a contest move, and it was like such a crowd pleaser. You know, like everyone wants to see the Rayleigh.
I think I remember reading, I don't know if it was this, but it was something about the new crew, and it was like, we just see too many of them. Like, it's just an oversaturated type, like in contest runs, like all you see.
It was like, it would be like air Rayleigh, switch Rayleigh, crypt, switch crypt, you know, or whatever. Yeah. And those were the highest. They would rank those the highest because they weren't hard. Well, I could never do them. I guess they were hard.
Well, you don't have to pass the handle. You don't go upside down. So
so I think there was like a point at which like someone won the world championship and never passed the handle once, you know? And it was just like, we're spinning. We want to snowboard, you know? We want to snowboard on the water, you know? So there's a whole other aspect to this of just like, you know, what we were trying to do and that wasn't being represented. And so we wanted it to be represented.
Yeah.
And that was our first kind of like,
putting that one in.
Here we go.
All right, so we got no Rayleighs. You remember some more?
No Rayleighs. There was a shorts length.
Correct.
There was a rope length.
Well, the shorts one had a specific.
Past your knees.
Yes, and show some butt crack.
Yeah. God, what else is there? I think that's what I really remember.
Yep. Well, you said the rope length, right? Mm-hmm. The specific one was rope length is long enough to require hand signals to communicate with the driver.
Well, because trick skiing, you're like right there.
You're talking to him. It's like wake surfing, basically.
Yeah.
Your stance has to be 21 inches or wider.
The stance. Yeah.
That's a big one.
Which is ridiculous. Like when I see my stance back then, I'm like, that doesn't look comfortable. It doesn't look good. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it looks good, but it was, again, like, it's a departure because it was like you had guys riding trick ski stances.
Yeah.
And it was like, nope,
we're going the other
all
way.
the way out. And it was like, and like that board that Thomas's pro model that was like a 158 all the way out was insane.
It'd be wild.
It was
squatting on the board.
It was crazy. But
we also have to play at least 15 minutes of video games every day. That one's all right.
GoldenEye.
Yeah. Okay. On what, N64?
Yeah.
You don't wear gloves ever.
Nope.
I stand by that one. And the other one was you don't wear 3/4 suits.
No.
I don't get that one.
I don't either. I don't know. I think everybody was wearing like 3/4 suits.
This is a thing that people
this is what I mean. Like there was like all these things that like were out there, that were very specific to us at the time. And now I look like I don't even know what that means. But
I would say I agree with half those.
Yeah.
Half of them are pretty good.
Yeah. But I think what I think what we're saying in that and that is that like that was basically wakeboarding.
Yeah.
And like that sort of culture was water skiing, and that's not what we wanted. We wanted to not be water skiing. We wanted to be boarding. We wanted to be a board sport.
Yeah.
Not a water ski sport. So.
Yeah, fair. I liked it. We've got one more Patreon question about new crew, and it's from Derek Davis. And he's just wondering if there was an official list of who was in the new crew, or was it more of just like a kind of just a couple people?
The new crew was like never a thing, like, but it was us. Like it was, we didn't come up with that name.
Yeah.
That was the name of the article when it came out. And, but there's a list in that article of people, you know, I mean, like it was me and Matt and Thomas and Randy, and our friend, like I said, our friend Andrew, and just all the guys that we rode with back then.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like the new kids.
We're just doing it a little bit different.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think, you know, the crew accomplished, or not the crew, but do you think you guys accomplished what you kind of set out to do, which was separate it from skiing a little bit?
I think so. I mean, like, I think our approach was very, let me think of the right word. We were not bashful about how we did it. I mean, we intentionally were agitating things, you know, like we had intention around what we were doing. We knew exactly what we wanted. And I mean, I would go to Pro Tour meetings at the Pro Tour and just be like, this is ridiculous, guys. Like, this is not what sport is, you know? And I would make arguments.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting around with all the pro riders. Like, we're going to talk about this because, like, this is our television broadcast and there's not a grab in sight. You know what I mean? So, like, we got to, like, work on this because, like, we're also, you know, going to be getting into becoming a board sport, and like there's a lot of style that is involved in these things.
These other ones, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we did. I mean, I think these are all like long-term aspirational stuff that, like, you know,
it's not an overnight thing.
It's not an overnight thing, and it's probably something that it certainly happened towards the end of my career, and now when I watch wakeboarding, I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah. Like,
there is no way I would have ever done any of this stuff. And it's so far beyond like what we were even thinking now, which is really, really cool. But like, I think Scott was really the impetus to all of it. You know, like when you watch like Spray and he's sliding those docks that today I'm still like, that's amazing. Like that Lake Howell dock where he's like ollieing the little like thing at the end, you know? I mean, like those movies, man, like what he was doing back then, that's what really changed things, I think. And then we were sort of like Gen 2, and we were like, okay, we'll take this and continue to run a little bit, for sure. So I think it did. But
yeah, it's all a factor of the progression of the sport, and you get, you know, different people with different visions, and you kind of everyone's trying to pull it in their own direction, and it just kind of goes wherever you know, everybody concedes that it will. So that's interesting to hear. I think it's time we dive into the LF'n Wheel of Questions presented by Liquid Force.
The LF'n Wheel of Questions.
Okay, let's go.
Am I getting this off the table?
Yeah, if you can grab that down there. So Liquid Force likes to make wakeboarding fun, so I think we make this podcast a little bit more fun by spinning the LF'n Wheel of Questions.
Okay.
So we got, twist that a little bit so I can read there. We got top 3 style people. We have worst trend, then, and now. Greatest of all time, top 3 video parts, worst slam, and GOAT, obviously. So, and steel trick. So go ahead and give that a spin.
Ooh, that spins nicely.
Yeah, she's a nice one. Wow. Okay.
No, I mean, Scott Byerly.
Okay.
Hands down.
Love it.
No quick.
Female?
Easy.
Female side?
That's a good question. There's a lot of really great female riders out right now. That's a tough question. I don't know their names, but like when I watch female wakeboarding right now, I'm like, dude, this is pretty insane.
Yeah.
Like the rails and everything they're doing, like it's pretty cool. I don't know. That's a good question. Amber's really good. I think she did a lot. I think what she did
laid down some tricks.
She you know, did the 900s and all that in Dallas too. She did it. She just kind of like stepped it up, you know. So I don't know, probably between them two.
Those are two good ones. I think I've gotten goat like the last 4 times, so I tried to narrow it down. Do it again. Another one. Oh, that's a good. It's a
goat
spin right there. Are you kidding me?
Goat.
No way.
Wow.
This is 3 goats in a row. This is insane.
All right, I won't say it this
It
time.
won't go this time.
Come on.
Is it just rigged? Is it just going to land on that thing every single time?
This is...
You got to... What is going on?
Guys, what's happening? 5 goats.
The statistical probability of this... Okay.
Slam. Mine or in general?
I was going to go one you've had and then one you've been there for, whether you're filming or just in the crew of.
Both are 900s. There was some event Wakeboarding Magazine was putting on, and they brought all the pros out, and it was like a double up photo shoot, and I tried a 900, and I hit the water, and then I woke up being underwater and looking up, and I was just like, this isn't good. So that was my hardest slam, and the other hardest slam I saw was Staker doing a 900, and he got a concussion, and he just like, he was leaving that day for somewhere, and I was like, where are you going, dude? And he's like, I don't know. And he started saying something, or he started repeating he had to leave or something like that. So those two are
a couple of conkies.
Yeah.
Those aren't good.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up this elephant wheel question, the crew at Liquid Force has a wild card, so a little bonus one here.
Okay.
And they want to know your favorite wake film of all time.
Hit It.
You had that one locked and loaded. You were just ready for that
Scott Byerly's part in Hit It.
Okay.
But Hit It in general, music,
yeah. Overall.
the riders, everything. Spray is really good. Gravity Sucks is good, but Hit It. I remember where I was when I watched that movie for the first time.
Yep.
So,
that's how you know it's a...
I mean, it was crazy. Like, it was just like the tricks that were being done that had never been done before, had never been imagined before. Like the Scarecrow came out. Yeah. Somebody had to think about that trick and do it. And it was like, oh, you can flip that way, you know? And then it was like Crow Mob and like, all that stuff. So, yeah, that movie's...
It's a good one. I was wondering if you were going to, like, have a bunch or if you just had one that you're locked in on, and that's...
Yeah, I mean,
obviously there's a lot of good ones.
Gravity Sucks is awesome. It's such a fun movie. Like, it's like, that was my era of, like, being a non-pro wakeboarder. It was Gravity Sucks and Spray. And, so those are really influential movies, you know, just because they're just like, there was Gravity Sucks that came out, and then Hyperlight had a video that came out, and it was like, I don't know if it was called How to Ride a Wakeboard, but it was Darren, and he was like doing crazy. He was like riding behind a helicopter, and then there was like a helicopter or a contest pass where he like landed upside down in the water, held onto the rope, and then comes out of the water. Like, it's crazy. But that was the only 2 videos, and then you had Hot Summer Nights that came on, and so we would just watch Gravity Sucks over and over and over, and it's just, it's, you know, it's like you get pumped. Like, that's what you did back then. Is you watched a video and then you'd go ride or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was like Big Air, Gator, Byerly, Brandon Meek, all those dudes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah,
it's cool. It's a cool movie, man. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. For those who haven't seen it, I mean, I don't know where you can. I know there's parts on YouTube. I don't know if the full thing's on YouTube.
I found it, I think.
The full thing is? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
If I'll find that, put that in the show notes. You can give it a watch. So we can go ahead and put the Liquid Force questions back. Thanks to Liquid Force for that.
5 goats.
That's we got to figure out what the statistical probability, because there's
2 of them.
I think there's 12 on there, and you got 5 in a row. Someone will do the math on that. Right. I just want to talk about the Gnar ramp real quick.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
So I found a video on YouTube, and it's maybe you didn't refer to it as this, but this is the title of the video. It's 2 ramps next to each other on a dock with PVC pipes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I was watching, and I was like, okay, these are sketchy looking ramps. And then I saw where the boat had to drive, and then where you had to cut in. Mm-hmm. It was Gnar. Yeah. I guess it was kind of gnarly.
I barely hit it. I hit the small one. I never hit the big one. But so this is like around the time when Scott had done a bunch of rails in Spray, and then rails went away, basically. Like, there weren't contests, certainly, and they were not in videos anymore. Mayday, there was no rails. All these movies, like, rails just for some reason stopped being done. And so we had all started building rails, and that rail in particular That was Thomas's idea. And another one of Thomas's ideas was jumping that bridge. Have you seen that video?
I have.
Dude.
You just got kicked out of that, right? Or
That's my house.
or whatever?
Like literally like 5 houses down from my
Okay.
That bridge is like right down the street from my house. And no idea what we're doing. You know, like just building what we think is sturdy platforms. And my parents were nice enough, like my backyard when we were growing up had 3 trampolines and like that thing on the back dock, and our boathouse had all our sponsorship banners all over it and stuff. I mean, it was a mess. But so we built this thing, and it was just ridiculous. I mean, like, you saw it. I mean, you're looking
I'll
at
put the
it.
clip in.
If you think it's gnarly, like, it was definitely gnarly, and it was not the right angle. It was very steep. And I hit it, and I was like, that's it. I'm not doing it again. And Thomas hit it a bunch and did a really good job on it. I think Staker hit it a couple times, but it was gnarly.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good hits on it. Just everything about it looked gnarly. The cut in, the
Yes.
going up the ramp. And,
It is.
but, I mean, you got some clips out of it. So that's,
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. I just couldn't imagine hitting, like, rails on boards like that. Like, I have a very specific, like, cable board. Or I get they're all specific now. And, like, I feel confident hitting rails and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you were to try and go back to, like, riding rails on those boards, it's just...
No, they're very stiff.
Yeah.
They were wakeboards. They were not rail boards.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, at least the PVC flexes a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Not the board, though.
And your body, if you hit it.
Very true. Let's talk Mayday.
Okay.
So, what were the 3 things you listed off in that movie that were the most important to you? We did like a little mini interview.
So, the first thing that to me was really cool about Mayday is that I was in an FLF film. So, FLF was the standard of all, to me at least, all wakeboarding films.
Yeah.
They were shooting 16 millimeter. They filmed the coolest guys, you know, and like to be a part of a fall line film was a dream. Like that was a huge accomplishment for me. I think I was in the one before Mayday, which was like My House or something like that. But it was a small part. And then Mayday, just to be on that trip with all those riders and be considered in that echelon of rider was a big deal. And then I guess what the question is, top 3?
Well, the question was a specific. You do like a little mini interview in that video. And you list off 3 things that are most important to you.
God, girls, and wakeboarding. Yeah, that's another 1997 Chase Hevener thing that always pops up. And he's like, "Hey, dude, don't forget about that quote."
Sick. I said that one in the movie.
God, girls, and wakeboarding. High school is about right here.
Yeah, you remember? Okay.
Oh yeah, I hated high school. Oh my god,
Hey.
it was the worst.
You and me both, man. So, we got another Patreon question from Brian Taylor.
Okay,
And he just wants to know your favorite memory from filming for that movie.
for Mayday.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It was a really cool trip, man. It was 3 houseboats, I think, and they, you know, fall line. It was our age guys. Just it's the crazier thing too about all of this stuff is that it's just us. Like it's just if you were making wakeboarding movies like at that level, you just call up your buddies and go, "Hey, let's go to Lake Powell. We're gonna rent 3 houseboats, and it's gonna be fun." And
We're
you're
just
like,
going to film.
okay, you know what I mean? And it's like that was it. It wasn't like a big film set. It wasn't like this big thing. Maybe it was. I don't know. I don't know anything about fall line back then, but like even now, it's just like friends going and doing stuff. So, I don't know. There was a lot of fun cliff jumps. I do remember like it was a big deal. Like that. So like 720 was being just beginning to be landed by Scott and Murray, and so it was a big deal to be on either of their boats. And so I never got to be on any of the. I think I rode with Scott once, but like it was like those were the 2 boats that went out during the day to like go do some stuff, and then everybody else kind of like went to get their clips, and then they would come back and it would be like Scott landed a 7, and I was like what? And then like there's some story about Murray landing his 7, and
Oh, yeah. Murray told it on his
which
podcast.
was
very...
Was it the Thomas thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we were all at odds. You know, it was an interesting dynamic for sure on that shoot. And again, me and Murray are great friends now. Like we hang out, and I think we go on foil trips now or whatever. So it's just like we're fine, and we were even fine back then. But like, he rode for Hyperlight, and Hyperlight was certainly the company that we thought had the most riders that lived in that like ski board, world.
Yeah.
And so like he was the and they sponsored the movie, so it was interesting for sure, but it motivated him, and he did the 720.
That he did. He put it down.
He did.
Oh man, it's wild to me, Murray's career span.
It's
like,
amazing.
where he's still riding. Like,
I know. I don't know how he does it, dude. I'll never ride a wakeboard again. And he's like ripping railies, dude.
You'll never ride a wakeboard
Never.
again?
Oh no. My buddy Sean Moore broke his leg a couple years ago, and I was like, nope, never again.
When was the last time you rode?
10 years ago.
Do you remember the set?
It was I think Jeff McKee had some photo shoot for something, and it was a slingshot thing, and we went out and I rode. I did a couple tricks, but that might not be true. I think I rode at my other friend's house. But anyways, last time I rode with wakeboarders, and I hurt my back, and I was like, never again. It's not gonna be fun. Like, it's gonna take me months to get to a place where it would be fun. My wakeboard gland is fully excreted. It's just sitting there in my brain, just like, just done. I excreted all the wakeboard energy out of it. Like it's just.
I get it. I mean, yeah, that's fair. You go to the cable though. You probably have some fun there.
I did. I was riding the cable for a little bit.
Yeah.
For me, like when I do things, like same with foiling or whatever, it's like I do things until I'm done. Like until I get to whatever that thing is out there. That's like I know this isn't going to get any better than this. Like and then I'm just kind of like, okay.
Some people are just like that. That's some. Yeah.
That was certainly me. So
all right. When did you get into filmmaking? I guess because.
So I got into. I'm trying to think how it started. I think I got a camera for Christmas, and I think one of the cool things about being a pro athlete, especially in wakeboarding, is you have access to all these like incredible riders. So they're all your friends, but two, it's like it's kind of like this, where it's like you can just call someone up and you start doing something cool, and everyone's like, "Yeah, cool, I'll show up. This is awesome. Let's go do it." So, so I got a camera for Christmas. I think it was the Panasonic GX1000.
The GX1000,
red and white one.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I got that camera for Christmas, and it was not like a thought. I just like, let's mess around, shoot some video, and then we just started doing it and liking it. And around that time, Thomas had started doing. He was really into it. Thomas had been shooting video. He had a VX1000, which is the Sony one. So he got that, which was like the skate camera at the time. Like the,
still is considered a skate
right?
camera.
Yeah, like that big fisheye or whatever on it. And so he was really, really into it, and I had not gotten into it yet. And he and Eric Schmaltz did Decline of the Water Ski Monopoly.
Yes.
And so that movie really like was one of those things where it was just like, whoa, this is amazing. This is art. This is not.
Yeah. What about it was different? What like spoke to you, I guess, about that?
I think it was the editing. It was the overlays. It was the way they edited it. It was the way every piece was done, And there's a really interesting story about how they did that movie. So Thomas and Eric, I think they shot for about a year. And it was all of the guys that, we all hung out with. And it was like, it's one of those things where it's just every day. You're just shooting every day. It's not an official photo shoot. You just have a camera and you just turn it on or whatever. And so they went out to, I don't know where they edited or where Eric was living at the time. And they had a 4 gigabyte computer. And so they had all these DV tapes, and they would load, they separated everybody's tapes into sections. So my section, Matt's section, his section, whatever. And they would log out everybody's tapes onto this 4 gigabyte computer. And they would edit the section, and then they would offload that section either onto a VHS or back onto a DV. And then they would erase the computer, and then they would start over and do every section that way. And that was how they did the movie. And then somehow they compiled it all at the end and made the movie through that. So when you think about it like that, I mean, it's very much like this big, wavy sort of psychedelic art piece, you know, but it was done in this like very like rigid, weird way.
Yeah.
And so I saw that movie and a couple other things Thomas had done, and I was just like, this is what I want to do, man. This is cool.
Yeah.
Like, and just the way they were doing all this like really cool like film Bernie beat match stuff, you know, like we used to like he was like really into Super 8, and he would when we would go do all these Super 8 shoots, he had like a sheet in his house, and we would just find old projectors and film them, and then film them with the digital camera, and that's how we could get the footage in or whatever. But and we would just like we would like hold the Super 8 reel thing and let it burn out, and so we'd get all these really cool textures and stuff. Yeah. So I don't know, just he was definitely like the impetus to me like getting into it, and then I started getting into like After Effects and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
That's interesting. I mean, I'll put the Decline of a Water Ski Monopoly. A great name. Great name for a movie. Like, just couldn't get a better name for a movie.
Yeah, it was on the money, right?
Literally on the money. Yeah, that's where the money's going. And now for a quick word from the Canvas shop, which is home to skiboatcovers.com. So if you need a new ski boat cover, skiboatcovers.com is the place to go. They have you covered. Family owned and operated for almost 50 years, they've been manufacturing top quality, custom fitted, American made covers for both ski and wake boats. Made with durable, weather resistant materials, their covers are built to outlast factory covers and competitors' covers alike, while always protecting your boat from the elements, ensuring it stays in pristine condition year round. They are easy to install and designed to fit perfectly. They are the best choice when it comes to aftermarket covers for your boat. Don't let the rain, sun, debris, or anything ruin your ride. You got a nice boat, get a nice cover for it. If you need a new cover for your boat, visit skiboatcovers.com. They have you covered, literally. And when you do, make sure you use code GRAB50 at checkout for $50 off your order. I think we got time to dive into a voice question.
Okay.
A question from Erik Ruck.
Okay.
Hey, Chase. It's Erik Ruck here. Big fan of your work. I just wanted to say that out of all the attention deficit edits I have ever seen, or you guys put out, my favorite is Rave Till Dawn. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit about where that edit came from. So, yeah, cheers.
Yeah, I'd love to hear you talk about it because I had never seen this edit.
I was going to send it to you last night, and I was like, I'm just going to see if this comes up.
Ruck did send it to me, and I see the thumbnail, and I'm like, oh, is this going to be like a little bit of partying and wakeboarding? And I was like, I watched it. Just run through.
It's funny. Last night, I was like, I wonder if this is online. It's definitely online. And so I sent it to the group of condo guys. We have a group chat, and they were like, I think that was around the time right when we moved into the condo. So like I moved out of the house. We all first time, leaving the house, leaving our parents' houses, moved into this condominium. And this movie is the first thing we decided to do, I guess, because there was no furniture in there. And I don't know what it was. That Sandstorm song was out.
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean, it's a banger.
And we were just having fun, man. We were always doing weird stuff, videos, and that was just what we did. And that showed up in a Sideways video. So, like, Ron hit me up. He's like, hey, you got any, like, weird stuff to, like, B-sides or whatever, And so we did that, and we did Old Blue. Have you seen the Old Blue thing?
Well, I did have a Patreon question from Garrett Ortiz, and he's just wondering how many times Old Blue sunk.
4.
4.
Yeah, Old Blue was sunk 4 times. The last hurricane took it out. And
she's gone?
Gone. Yeah, I still have the Nautique throttle thing.
That's sad.
But yeah, that was so. I don't know why we did it. I watched it and it's like pretty funny. But yeah, that was like we were always trying to like put stuff out, So that was just one weird thing we put out.
Yeah. So what was Attention Deficit for those who don't know?
So Attention Deficit was the film company or video company or whatever you want to call it that we came up with to launch all of our videos out with. So the first one was Hot Doggin', and then it was Invisible Cinema, and then it was Pre-Pop, and I think we did Linear Perspective and Spumato under Attention Deficit.
Okay.
So, which was just me and Matt, and all everybody's just shooting stuff. But, it was like what our moniker or whatever.
Yeah, you got to have something to kind of connect it all.
Yeah.
So. All right. Love that.
Yeah, Chris Hevener came up with that name. He's a good name.
It's a great one.
Yeah,
Another great one.
It's a good one.
Some good
I
names.
thought about doing something with it again, but it's nice to just back there.
Yeah. All right, I think we run into another segment, which is Deserve Some Love, which is presented by Driftline. Driftline makes the best boardies on the market. If you need some new board shorts, make sure to go grab some Driftlines. They got a wetsuit liner in them, keep you warm, keep you protected out there. Use code GRAB15 for 15% off your order. And Deserve Some Love is a chance where you can kind of give some shine to someone who maybe didn't get the love, recognition that you feel they maybe deserved. It could be a writer, photographer, filmer, anybody you met along the way.
Man, wow. That's a great question. There's a lot.
And it doesn't have to be one. It could be, you got a couple names or whatever.
I mean, I feel like performance ski and surf is, I think they get a lot of recognition, but the influence they had on the sport and when we were doing it, it was just insane.
Yeah.
Like, every rider came through there, and Bill's support and the way he supported everybody, it was just like, it was one of the coolest things, just now thinking back on it, just like how he did what he did with everybody. It was very cool.
That's a good one.
Man, Sean Dishman. He did some really cool stuff back in the day when he kind of gave us the contest we wanted.
Yeah.
So he did the X Cup stuff, and so they were all kind of Florida-based contests. And so we would kind of like all go to Jacksonville or wherever he was doing. He could find a lake and throw a contest, and we sort of did some really cool stuff back then.
Yeah.
So I think he's done a lot for wakeboarding and sort of behind the scenes there. I think Bill McCaffrey is a big one. I think he's been behind the scenes. He was, obviously, like when he was riding, he wasn't behind the scenes, but he's done so much for the sport and still doing so much for the sport. So he deserves a lot of love and credit for where we are,
Yeah, absolutely. Those are three very solid, names. So that's good there.
Cool.
Let's keep talking movies, videos, and stuff.
Okay.
So, did you have a favorite movie premiere or video premiere that you went to back in the day, or hosted?
I remember the Decline premiere. That was a big one for everybody that was in it. I mean, I think what was cool about that movie is that everybody that was in it felt like they were accurately represented in a video part, and I think that's not always the case. You kind of go and do these videos, and then whoever's editing them is going to put them to music, and you think it's going to be a representation of who you are as a rider. That's certainly not always the case, and I think that movie and that premiere was a great one. Like, it was just where it was at the Social downtown. I think I want to say Hot Water Music played the premiere. I could be mistaken, but and it was just awesome, man. Like, so I remember that being a really cool one. We did a me and my brother and our friend Josh toured the country in his Crown Victoria for Invisible Cinema. So we started in Florida, did a premiere in New York, did one in Texas and Oklahoma, and in Encinitas, and then drove home. That was pretty fun.
That's a heck of a trip.
It was horrible, but it was fun to do the premiere.
That's the whole
it was
country.
fun to do the premieres, but it was not fun driving.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So we're talking videos, talking movies. You've had your hand in both sides, being a rider, on the behind the scenes kind of thing. What other than good riding, what do you think makes a video good or a movie good?
I mean, music. That's where I start. I start with music.
So before we move on from music, I'm curious, like, if you were to put a split of like riding and music, how important is music?
It's over 50%.
Agreed.
It is. You don't have a movie without music, but you have music without a movie. You know what I mean? Like, the way a video sounds is. I want to say it's more important than the visual, because you're creating the emotion with it, right? So if it's just a mute screen with a picture, it's a totally different animal. So music selection is where I start, and generally with anything, with an edit, I will not start until there's a song selected, and then I'll edit to the music. But I think, I think what makes a good action sports film is, does it, as riders, you're out doing this thing. You're out doing surfing or snowboarding or wakeboarding, and like I was talking about before, you're having this experience on the water, right? And it's really hard to communicate what that feels like to somebody else. You have to do it, right? But there's a medium, and that medium is video, and music and visuals sort of like stimulate that same emotion, you know, in a way, not the same, but you still get this, like, you get pumped up to go do it. And so I think the best videos, for whatever reason, give people that emotion to get up and go do it, and to watch it again and go do it again, you know? And I think that's music. I really think that's I think that's the song that you pick, and there's just parts out there. There was that John Florence part, I think it's the Moon one, where he's that slow-mo shot of him coming out of the wave to this like insane just like song. I mean, it is one of the best sections and like pieces of action sports video to music I've ever seen. So there's still stuff out there that I watch and I'm like, that's insane. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But there's so much content now that it's very rare that I'm like, that's like.
Yeah, it's almost hard. I mean, it is harder to create a piece that has that much, you know, ability to move somebody.
Yeah.
Because they see so much already now. Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head there, is like, what makes a good video? Well, whatever is in the video, if it makes you want to get up and go do that actual thing, you kind of accomplish what the goal of the video should be, right? So, yeah,
and I think it's such when we were doing it, it's such a different time than now, and so it would be a year before a movie would come out, and so you'd be stacking a year's worth of footage into a single film. And no one had seen you ride for a year, which is like, now it's like, if you're not putting a clip up every day, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know? So it's just like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, such a different mindset, you know, to put that much thought into what you're doing. And obviously it's a different way of consuming media now, but like what we were doing back then, you know, it took me 3 months to edit pre-pop and invisible cinema and all these other things, you know, and like took a year to shoot, you know. I mean, imagine doing that now and how risky that would be to do, you know, like it's almost too risky to even do that anymore.
You'd have to it'd have to be totally approached differently. Like,
totally.
You know, you'd have to document it along the way while simultaneously like holding close bets.
I don't know how you do it. And there's no like, you're not selling DVDs anymore.
No.
You're giving it away for free.
You're putting it on YouTube for free. That's the only way it's going to get seen.
It's just a totally different animal.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, do you keep up with wakeboarding nowadays?
I do, yeah. I try to, like, follow everybody and, like, you know, still definitely, like, I love watching it progress, man. I mean, it's like Daniel Grant, that dude is just like it's insane, man. Like, and, like, I followed the Shredtown guys, and I like dudes and like riders who are just like, nope, we're over here.
Yep.
You know, like this is what we're doing. Then all of a sudden everyone's like, what? And then it all goes that way, you know? Yeah. But it's just like, it's stuff where like it happens and you were never even thinking about it, you know? And then somebody's being creative and, you know, and all of a sudden they're like, here we go. Here's the future.
Yeah. Everybody's operating in this one box and this guy's way out here. And it's like, well,
yeah. That's the stuff I like, and it's you know, obviously I think that gets harder and harder as like a sport matures, you know.
Yeah, I feel like sports mature, and they also get like very, you know, not pigeonholed or bottlenecked, but like boat wakeboarding right now is very specific in what people are doing. There's no rails on the boat. There's no like hitting docks. It's the wake and double ups. Like that's what people are doing. Cable has its own niche. Like they kind of segment off, and it's no longer like this one big aura of a sport. It's like these different little sects, and that's just kind of what happens, I think.
Yeah.
With just progression. That's just natural progression. So, but it is interesting. We got some questions from the Au Revoir crew. Okay. I hope I said that right. Ollie, I'm sorry. And Raph and everybody involved. We were talking pre-pop, and, you know, Ollie and that crew, he said they watch pre-pop a ton.
That's
and
awesome.
They said it has one of the most mesmerizing intros for a wake movie that they've seen. Where did your inspiration come from that movie, specifically the filming style, themes, music, editing style, all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think the intro specifically, like I think wakeboarding in general has always been presented as like this. Even I mean, and we were doing it too. It's hardcore music. Like it's like we're ripping. Like we're doing insane stuff, going 20 feet in the air. Like the music's got to be at that level. And I thought it would be interesting to do something a little more beautiful. And something just a little more calming, but also having, that kind of stuff and bringing in, just B-roll, just of cool shots, and that's sort of in that art piece world, of what we were doing back then. But when that movie came out, I had stopped wakeboarding completely and I had gone full sail and sort of gotten my degree in digital media. And so I had learned After Effects, and I had learned all these new tools to go and bring to my craft, and so I think Invisible Cinema, I had done some After Effects. I did a lot of After Effects in Invisible Cinema, but Pre-Pop was the one where I feel like I had started to get it, and so that was like a big thing, was like creating sort of art, if you will, through graphic design. And through motion graphics. So to me, it was an outlet. It's not we were obviously selling videos, but like I'm creating, like it was a creative outlet for me. And that was my piece of art, so I don't know where that comes from. I mean, for me also, like wakeboarding is that, foiling is that for me. Like it's all this coming from the same place of like creation or doing, and you're getting that same fulfillment from it, So, but I think it's that same spirit of doing something different, that wasn't being done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it definitely was. And that song just like, that speaks to your point of it's over 50% because that song just hits with like the clips that are in it. So it's, yeah, kids.
It's funny. It's funny because like you watch, it's like you do these things and you watch that. I watched that intro at least 1,000 times when you're editing it. And I remember back in the day, you used to like print these things out on a VHS, or you'd make a final render. And I remember there was a point in that making of that movie where I was like, this sucks. This song is horrible. No one's going to like this. And I just remember like I printed it out and I watched it and I was like, okay, it's good. And I just sent it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like you just get in these crazy loops of just like you're obsessing, you're just obsessing about this, like, what are people going to think, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, it worked out. I like that movie.
Yeah, I mean, good movie. Invisible Cinema, obviously before, but the R crew wanted you to talk about Aaron Reed bashing. I don't know if he had a typo here, but he says Aaron Reed bashing intro from OWC Kid. Skit is hilarious.
I have the sketches here.
Oh, you do? Okay, let's pull those out then. Let's take a look at those.
So I don't know. We were just interviewing Aaron about it. He's hilarious. So one of those things, I don't even know if we were interviewing him. I might have just had the camera on. He was talking about it. But I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I found this. I have a little box of wakeboarding at my house, and I have all the OG Aaron Reed sketches.
Love it.
Pretty cool. But I don't know where that came from. I honestly don't remember. There's a lot of stuff I don't remember, but
I mean, there's been a lot that you did.
Yeah.
So the guys did want to say in the Au revoir crew, I know I'm butchering how to say au revoir, but I'm just going to keep running with it. Your stamp and legacy on wakeboarding is larger than you know, and they want to say thank you for the impact they had on their careers.
Thank you. I went to the premiere. I was like, I never go to wakeboarding events, and
well, there aren't that many. So.
And like Sean Perry was like, hey, you want to go to this premiere? And I'm like, sure. And I went, and I don't even know if I met them before, but we don't know each other that well.
Yeah, different eras kind of.
And they were like, dude, it was cool. It was really cool to go and for them to be like, whoa, this is cool that you're here. Because like what they said, like they kind of looked up to those movies, and you don't think about it, like you just don't think about that it impacts people. No, they were probably kids when that came out,
Probably rewatching it just like you were rewatching old movies.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
And now for a quick message from our friends over at the WSIA. Water Sports Industry Association asks all water sports fans, athletes, and families to wake responsibly and help spread respectful boating. Protecting these activities we love for generations to come is super important. The guidelines are simple. Stay 200 feet away from shores, docks, and other boats. minimize repetitive passes, and keep music at a reasonable level. Whether you ride, ski, or surf, we can all do our part to make our local waterway a safe and courteous place to have fun for all ages. For our listeners in Wisconsin, the WSIA will be hosting a Wake Responsibly event at Twin Lakes Summer Nights, so head on over to see them. Visit the newly rebranded wakeresponsibly.com website for more info about how you can get more involved.
Absolutely. So let's talk Alliance. So
Okay.
I talked to Bill a little bit. He's got a couple of questions, but I think first off, we start with just how you helped Bill and Tony, kind of launch Alliance and what that involved for you or entailed for you.
So that goes back to Wakeboarding Magazine. And when we started wakeboarding, so my house is a mile from World Publications, or it was back in the day. So we could literally walk to World Pub. And Tony was the editor. And so we had all sort of, as photo shoots start to happen, you start to become friends with these guys. And Tony was probably, I don't know, whatever, 25, and we were 15 or something, and so we would just like walk into World Pub, like kids. Like we would just walk into this corporate office and just start messing with Tony. You know what I mean? And just like I would like leave notes on his desk that were like, note to self, Chase Hevener is the best wakeboarder of all times. And just like, put it on his desk, whatever. We were just being kids. And so we all became friends, and Billy and Tony were friends, and Billy became the West Coast editor of Wakeboarding Magazine. And at some point, we had become part of the editorial team there. We were working with Billy and Tony, and I just remember we were always getting yelled at by Tony for missing the deadline. So I don't know when that happened, but we had integrated pretty heavily into the magazine, into their workflow. And again, like, who's giving these kids free rein to say whatever they want? But so Billy, I think he got let go or something happened, and he went and worked for, or he might have just gone to Blue Torch. I don't remember the exact specifics. But he went and did Blue Torch, and that was this huge conglomerate of all these different action sports, and wakeboarding had their own, segments in snowboarding, skating, motocross, whatever. They had a whole contest thing. Like we would go on Blue Torch contests, and like it was awesome. It was really fun. And so anyways, Billy was the head of that, and Tony had stayed at wakeboarding. And I remember there was just a moment where Blue Torch was just like, we're done. It was a big corporation, so it was like they were trying to get into action sports, and when it didn't work the way they wanted to, I think they just kind of like cut it. I think I could be wrong there, but I think that's what happened. And Billy was left to go with all these relationships and all these thing that he had been working on for so long, and I think he just saw an opportunity. And Tony had come over, I believe. Tony had started to work there as well, and they wanted to do it. They wanted to make a second magazine and be a real competitor to Wakeboarding Magazine. And so we were obviously still integrated into that. So we were always working together and writing articles and doing stuff. And when he wanted to go do that magazine, he came to my family for investment. And so we invested in Alliance with him, and still going. It's pretty cool. So yeah, we were a part of the team at the very beginning. And I remember walking around Surf Expo, him and Tony, saying, here's what we're going to do. I don't even know if they had a name yet. They were going to start a magazine and go do this thing. But there was no competitor. Like, there was no real competitor to Wakeboarding Magazine at that time. And there was obviously room for a second magazine. So Billy and Tony really did it. And we became, at that point, my brother and me and Matt and whoever else we wanted to be in it, I think we got 4 to 6 pages every magazine. It was called Distortion. And so that was either a great idea or a horrible idea, but we had it. And that's sort of the time where, I think for all of this, like when we're talking about making movies, or like what I did after wakeboarding, which was like fully doing movies, like there's this element of media and there's element of like play the audience, that's really fun. And back then, again, it was totally different. Like, you put something out there, there were no comments. There were no comments that you could read people's immediate reaction. Like, you would put something out, and then you'd go to a contest and you'd hear about it 2 weeks later. Yeah. So it's just like, I'm still hearing about it. We're talking about New Crew right now. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
True.
So it's like, it's just so, it's almost impossible to imagine what that was like, because it's just so different than how we do things right now. But yeah, so we had 4 pages to kind of do whatever we want, and then the magazine was also, we would have monthly ideations and like talk about the articles that everybody wanted to put out, and then who was going to be on the cover and all these things. So it was awesome, man. It was really cool, and I think Alliance was, like a really refreshing, like, sort of departure from Wakeboarding Magazine. And we were putting out movies, we were doing everything, so it was cool.
Yeah. And when I was talking to Kevco about that, it was just like, it's a yin and yang type thing. You like you said, the Wakeboarding Mag was there, but you need to have, I don't know if counterculture is the right word, but just someone that's doing something different, saying different things to bring a different energy to the media landscape of things, which is what Alliance, that hole that could have been filled, and that was, obviously there was room for it, like you were saying.
And I think World Pub being in Winter Park, Florida, in Orlando, and Alliance being in California, there was certainly a West Coast element to Alliance that was not featured in Wakeboarding Magazine. So that's a whole nother world of wakeboarding that just like probably didn't really get any play. Like Keith Kipp and those guys, and like the Delta and Melissa and all that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And like Melissa and all that. Like they probably were like, why aren't we getting photo shoots all the time? But it's like, Orlando is this weird place, and in that period of time, like, I was trying to think about if there was anywhere else in the world around a sport like Orlando, because like wakeboarding came up very quickly, and if you wanted to be a pro wakeboarder, you were here. If you weren't here, you were not a pro wakeboarder. I mean, there were a couple, but like you had to come to Orlando. And so I was lucky enough to grow up here. I was lucky enough to grow up a mile away from the actual magazine, So I think there's a lot of, like, for me at least, there was some skill. I think I was a good rider, but there's a lot of it being that I was here and I grew up here, and it was just this weird thing here that happened in that time that is still happening. Everybody still lives here, but like, you could not be a professional wakeboarder and not be here. You had to come to Orlando.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. Like, I think maybe Hood River, but even then, I think,
because I was trying to think, I was like, well, in snowboarding and skiing, it's like you have Salt Lake City, but you also have Colorado, which is very strong, and there's definitely also California, and like, so it's not as like
concentrated
one place.
Yeah.
And Orlando is that with Toadwater Sports.
It's weird, man. It's definitely a unique thing. And I think, I think most of the pros are, at least in my era, sort of either lived here or at some point their parents moved here and they got into it, So definitely cool. I feel blessed to.
I didn't know you were that close. I mean, mile is like.
Oh, dude, it's
wild.
It was a mile and a half from my house.
I think we dive into another segment called Fast Five, presented by Fatsac.
Okay.
So Fatsac, I mean, we know they make the best ballast bags.
We did a review on a Fatsac once.
So we're going to talk about the Fatsac review after this, actually. So, yes, they make the best ballast bags on the boat, but they also are on the market. They have this 50-pound bag. So you take this red cap off, you fill it with water, and you can throw it around anywhere on the boat. I think if you have a boat, and you're towing water sports, at least a couple of these you might as well have them because you can easily balance out the wakes, add a little bit of weight. So if you guys are interested, use code GRAB15, 15% off. Link in the show notes.
That's pretty cool.
So Fast Five is, I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and we're just going to rip through them.
Okay.
And then we're going to tell the Fatsac story.
Okay.
So, number 1, montages or proper parts in a video?
Dang, dude. Parts.
Okay. I think I'm there with you.
With montages in between.
Should video parts show the rider's name in them?
Yes.
Best tantrum to blind? You?
I don't know. Is it?
You?
I mean, it's tough because there's some pretty cool tantrum to blinds right now out there.
Yeah.
Like I think there's pretty cool grab tantrum to blinds. But I think that's probably my trick.
That was, I mean, when I was watching back through your footage, it was like, man, there were some good T2Bs in these.
If I
these units.
if I talk to anybody about wakeboarding who knows about wakeboarding, like tantrum to blind, I'm like, okay.
Sure, I'll take it. Foiling or wakeboarding?
Same.
Same?
They're the same for me.
Okay.
Different times.
Last time you grabbed Tindy. But I didn't realize that you hadn't wakeboarded in 10 years. So.
Oh, man, I try not to. I will say this. The last time I rode a wakeboard, I tried to nose grab and actually grabbed the top back rail of the board and not the nose.
Oh.
So that's probably considered a
Yeah,
Tindy-ish.
So yeah, just a no-go zone.
I tried not to grab Tindy, but I was slobbing.
Sometimes it's just right there. Your hand
it's
slips,
easy,
and you're like,
you know?
hopefully that one wasn't on video. But let's. So we got another Patreon question from Jeff McKee, and he was wondering, you guys did some of the best articles over the years. Which was your favorite? We remember an instructional on hitting the pink box.
That wasn't mine. That was actually Miles and Thomas and I think Jim. They did that one. I don't know, man. We did a fun Fatsac one. I remember where we.
Is this the trying to pop the fat sack?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect follow up.
What other articles did we do? We did a big fun arm wrestling contest with all the wakeboarders one time. Where they all came over to the condo and it was a
tournament bracket
it
style.
was a bracket style arm wrestling contest.
Bring that back.
Yeah, and we did a boxing one also. And,
Oh, that sounds good.
And it ended up being me and my brother at the end of it who reached the finals.
How do you determine who wins at boxing?
Because you give up.
Oh, okay.
It was a boxing match.
It was a tap out.
It was a legitimate boxing match, and Chris took out all of his young brotherly.
Wow.
He won. I think he almost broke my nose. But
Yeah.
but we got separated, and it was all good.
Well, you got runner up. That's not bad. Yeah, let's. What's the Fatsac one? Because he's trying to pop.
So we were doing reviews, and I think it was either Wakeboarding Magazine or Alliance, but we would do product reviews, and one of the product reviews was a Fatsac, and so our review was how much can we fill the Fatsac up, and it is impressive how much you can fill a Fatsac up. It's at least double what you think it is
with water.
Yes. Like we filled it up, and then we started burping it, right? And then once it's tight and there's no air in there, we just put the hose in and walked away. It was like 45 minutes of hose going into it. And much bigger than this table of a full-size Fatsac. It was crazy, dude. I was blown away. It was not popping. And somehow, I don't know what happened. I think we had to throw something at it for it to pop.
Shout out Fatsac. Wow, that's wild.
Impressive. So, I don't know if they want that to be the thing, but you can.
Well, that's just an ode to durability right there. That's all you need.
I remember being like, I can't believe this is possible.
Yeah.
We're underfilling our Fatsacs in the boat right now.
Yeah, I feel like you're always worried, like, oh man, is it gonna, roll on something and pop or whatever?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can fill that unit up twice as big.
100%.
You'll be all right. Bill wants to hear about the poo dollar story. The poo dollar.
Poo dollar.
Poop dollar.
I don't know. That was like trend going around back then, where you'd put either like pick up a dog poop or something with your dollar and throw it out there and laugh at whoever picked it up.
Yeah, it's a gross one.
Yeah, it's pretty gross now. It's kind of like, all right.
He wants to hear about the time when you went through the handle and the rope broke.
Dude.
Does that come to mind?
That would have been bad. That's interesting that you remember that. So that was at an X Cup, and I tried a 720 off the double up. And this was when hardline ropes had come out, and hardlines were these really thin ropes because everything was like super bungee. And hardline basically got these huge spools of whatever they were made.
Closer.
Oh,
yeah, you're good.
They got these like huge spools of whatever they were made of, and they were just, the tension was insane. Like, like for us riding, we just wanted the rope to be tight. And so I did one. I did a 7, and I fell. This might be my worst fall, but it didn't end up being bad. And I just put my whole arm through the handle, and the handle ended up here, and I fell, and I just remember going poof, like that, and the rope broke. And if it didn't break, my arms obliterated. I mean, I'm going 21 miles an hour, whatever. So I don't know what would have happened, but I broke the rope with my arm.
Where'd the rope break? Like on the handle piece, or
In the rope? It had
in the boat.
No, I mean, it was worn down. Luckily,
Thank goodness, yeah.
It would have not been good. So
yeah, that's always a scary thing. I feel like it's so rare when it happens, but it's because I know water skiers. I think they put like a little triangle thing on top of their rope so it doesn't happen. But
that happened to me one time. But it was gnarly.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yes.
Let's talk setup, because I'm curious. I guess back when you did ride, what was your setup? Board length, stance angle, all that stuff.
21 and a half was my boat speed, and back then that was a very hard accomplishment. You know, like because you're asking your driver to, one, pay attention, and then two, like keep you at 21 and a half, and I knew what 21 and 3/4 was, and so like, you know, I think if anybody that was driving back then, professional wakeboarders are probably some of the best boat drivers.
Had to be
now, even, you know, because you're just sitting there like this, like you're just barely touching it, and you see it go to like 20 and 3/4, and you're like, boop, and you're just, it's crazy. So, anyways, so 21 and a half was my speed. I think I was riding 72-foot rope. I had medium Wiley's bindings. A GTO was my favorite board, and I started riding asymmetrical. So I started riding farther back. So
a little directional.
I would have more nose on switch, but either I was all the way out or I was one back in the front.
I like that directional stance. That's
it was fun. It just switched it up. You know?
What size board usually did you ride?
Like a 141.
Okay.
It's like the GTO, and then I was riding the Impala first, which was insane board. I think is crazy, but it's cool. I mean, it's super narrow and super small. And then I had my board, and then I kind of switched to the GTO, and then I went to Liquid Force, and I rode the Trip first, and then I rode the Rhythm, and then I got like a.
How long were you on Liquid for?
I went from Neptune to Liquid Force.
Yeah.
And I think I was there for a year. It wasn't long, a year and a half maybe.
How'd that contract look? Was it all right?
This was at the end of my career.
Was it just boards?
Yeah, no, I was riding. I was a paid rider. I went on tour and stuff. I got third place in Orlando Pro Tour my first year on Liquid Force. So I got buyed to like the rest of the tournament. You know what I mean?
Oh, for the rest? Yeah.
Yeah. So like, so I got to go on tour and stuff and do a bunch of cool trips with them. That company is awesome, man. Like they're just so supportive of like what riders want to do. It was a new experience for me.
Yeah. Well, because that's got to be a much bigger like brand coming from.
Yeah, that's where all my friends were riding, who they were riding for, you know, and it was just fun to travel with them. But even that, just the support they would give you of just unquestioning you on like that you needed to be somewhere, you know, like it was just like, yeah, let's go. Yeah. Like I think that's, you know, that's Don, that's Tony and Jimmy, you know, they just believe in riders, and I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. Who was your favorite rider to film back in the day? Or favorite few, I guess.
It's a funny question because, like, now my favorite rider to film would be the one that would wake up at 6 a.m. and go film with me. And, like, back then when we were riding, it's like when you become the photographer, you realize how much hell you put your photographers through.
Yep.
And so it's like, you know, when you're the rider, you're just, well, we'll go ride whenever we want, man. Like, just you come hang out for the day. And I'm like, dude, I got stuff to do, man. Like, I'm not going to sit at your house for 3 hours until you're ready to ride. Like, just tell me when you want to ride. And so I think if I had to pick my favorite rider to film, it would be Danny Hampson. But I loved shooting with everybody. But getting to the point of shooting was definitely a task for a lot. I mean, it's just like, I know for me, like, I remember Lecce would always try to come shoot at like 6 a.m, and I was like, this isn't happening, dude. Like, I'm not waking up that early. But if you do, you get the good shot. Yeah. But it was just like, you could not wake me up. Anyways. But yeah, Danny Hampson.
Love that. That's a good one. Least favorite?
I was never forced to shoot I was never forced to film anyone.
True.
So it was sort of always who I was. It was me giving a phone call, say, I'm going to do this. You want to do it? So it was my choice to shoot people. Let me think. I don't know. If there is a least favorite, it's just because there was no motivation to go shoot at a timely time. But I don't remember who that was.
Yeah, no one's jumping out. Yeah.
I remember there were a lot of them, though.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
Certainly 80% of the people in Invisible Cinema and Pre-Pop did not want to wake up.
Oh, it's a vast majority.
Yes.
We don't like to hear that.
Yeah.
You ever get banned from getting your photo run in Wakeboarding Magazine?
I did.
Let's hear it.
Okay. I listened to the Kevco podcast.
Okay.
I heard his story, and it's in the world of being accurate. But what happened was we were well into Alliance at this time. I was at the end of my wakeboarding career, so it really wasn't that big of a deal to me. But we were well into making movies. I was writing still some, and Alliance was very much the competitor to Wakeboarding Magazine. Like, they were who we were up against, right? And so we were paying attention to Wakeboarding Magazine every issue. What were they doing? Were they doing it like us? Were we coming up with the ideas and they were going and doing all this stuff? And so my recollection of what happened is they came out with a cover, and that cover was very similar, if not an exact copy of what we had done the month before. And it's same one of those beefy emails, dude. You just sit there and you just send that thing, just like, whatever. And so, like, I wrote this thing on some forum about how Wakeboarding Magazine had copied Alliance, and the next morning I got a call from JB, who was representing the larger Bonnier Wakeboarding Magazine or whatever owned them at that time, and was like, that was not appropriate. And it basically was like, we have to stop. You will never have a image in our magazine again. And so, like, you're banned, basically. He said, we have to take action, sort of like the Pinecone situation,
Yep.
where we, like, have to take action, and our action is you have offended us, and we will not publish you anymore as a writer. So that's a big deal as a writer. For me, it really wasn't, because we had Alliance, and we were sort of doing whatever we wanted, and we had as much. But there was a point in time in my career where there wasn't a magazine out that didn't have a photo of me in it for, like, 3 or 4 years. Yeah. You know what I mean? So to cut that off is a big deal for, like, a sponsor or something. My parents were not happy. I think Tony got a call from my dad. Like, what are you thinking? He's like, it's fine. He's like, no, this is not fine. But anyways, that was, I mean, I'm like 22 maybe, just doing stupid stuff, like, I don't know. Anyways. But yeah, so it definitely got banned. For sure got banned from Wakeboarding Magazine.
You know if anybody else has been banned?
I don't know. Do you?
No, I don't know. This is kind of a short list. You've got a couple of banned situations. Like,
we were antagonistic. We were all of us were. I mean, the word now is disruptors, but, like, that was we were not there to go with the flow. We were there to push people and to push everyone to be like, no, this is where we're going. Let's go, kind of thing. So there were tactics.
being a little provocative, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. See, if it was me and I was Wakeboarding Mag, and it was nowadays, I would just only run photos of you grabbing Tindy. And that would be it.
That would be good.
That is great, though.
I think I got in there afterward, like a couple, like,
you snuck in there.
I think when Garrett was the editor, I think I got a photo, and I was like, it's over.
The beef is squashed.
Yeah.
So we usually put this on the LF'n Wheel of Questions, but I want to ask it. If you could make a movie nowadays, and you've got 5 riders, and you can pull anyone from their prime, so you could pull Byerly, prime,
oh wow,
or you could pull a Ty Hyam, you could pull a Rafter, you could pull anybody. Who are you pulling?
Wow. Dang.
Yeah.
Definitely Scott and Gator.
Okay.
Definitely Thomas. Wakeboarding. Like, if you ever got to watch Thomas wakeboard, it was a treat. Like, it is just, his riding style was just one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a wakeboard. I mean, I really think Daniel Grant's insane.
Okay.
Like, I just, what he's doing and what he's done has been really cool. I don't really keep up with wakeboarding now. I mean, I know who the riders are.
Yeah,
and I know what they're doing.
Super.
Oh man, I love the Shred Town dudes. I think I would.
You could just say Shred Town.
Shred Town would be in there.
Yeah.
Like, I love what they did. I think what they did as a group was really cool. I got to judge the X Games video things a couple times.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so I was part of that, and so from a judging perspective, and it was without question, they were doing the coolest stuff.
I'm curious on that judging of the X Games things. What is your guys' criteria? Because those are real wake videos you're judging. What is the criteria going into it? Because as a video judge, that's even weirder to me than not weirder, maybe more difficult than like a contest pass judge. You know what I mean? So yeah, what was your guys' criteria, and how did you guys determine who?
I don't remember. I think we had like some sort of list of things, and then you had your like kind of 1 through 5 or whatever. I think we sort of did it that way. I don't remember. But I think there was definitely like a list of criteria that we all came up with, or Billy came up with and sent it to us. But yeah, I mean, that's a hard deal. It was hard to do because everybody put some stuff on the table, and for me particularly, I know that I was definitely like Shred Town dudes. They were just doing it different. That's what I wanted to see,
What was that, 2017?
I think so, yeah.
And yeah, it was just so different, like so wildly.
Just thinking about rails, the way they thought about them,
yeah,
and like having their own lake or whatever, and just having that sort of medium to like create was like, I mean, again, that's really different. That was not happening, in wakeboarding, and then it just went. They just took it, and everybody started doing it, and then was Valdosta before them or after them?
No, it was Shred Town was like, I mean, Quinn Silvernail, the guy who started Valdosta with his friend Luke, was doing whinging, but like the first crew to like do a legitimate thing was Shred Town.
Yeah.
So
it was really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's got to be cool to be on behind the scenes thing of the X Games.
Yeah, it was cool. So I was in X Games. I was in, I think, the first wakeboarding one, and then I think I was in 2. Not mistaken, and then I did that as a judge. So it's cool, man. X Games are awesome. It's such a wild thing that they've done.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and it's bigger than obviously each of the individual sports. It brings them all together, which is huge. What would you say the biggest moment of your career was on the board side? On the board side,
man, I don't know. I was the first person to do a backside 720, so I felt like a big deal to be the first person to do a trick. I know at the time I thought that was probably like, okay, I did it. I like invented a trick or whatever. But for me, the video parts were always the thing. Like if I felt like there was a good video part out there, that was the peak for me.
What's the one you've rewatched the most of your own?
The boredom's pretty good. I like boredom.
Yep, I was watching that.
Yeah, Ricky did a really good job with that, and that was the way he did it was really cool. Anything fall line, I think the Mayday is pretty cool. But somebody posted the one just about the kids. Anyway, but yeah, anything fall line and boredom and all that was cool. So,
when was the last time you rewatched one of your own video parts?
Whenever they get posted on Wake World Hall of Fame or whatever, I'll go back and like watch them. It's funny, dude, because like I still practice my front flip. I'm still like, God, what am I doing? I'm doing a tantrum. I'm doing a tantrum and not a front flip. And I'll just like sit there and I'll just be like, front arm over. And I'm just like sitting in my chair, like doing this, or like a toe side front. Like I'll still sit there and just go like to try to figure out how to do it because I never could do it. And like my front flip was not good. Like it was like a bad front flip. So, and I still think in my mind, I'm like, if I just go out there, that's all I would do. It'd be like do a front flip just so I could do it.
Well, if you got a big wake, I'm sure you could get that sucker around.
Yeah, but
the landing might be the hard
I did
part.
try a couple proper ones, and it wasn't pretty.
Who do you think has the best front flip, or had the best front flip?
That's a great question. I think Mike Weddington has a great front flip. I think Drew McGuckin has a great front flip. I think Scott and Gator have incredible front flips.
I was picturing one of Gator's.
Yeah, I mean his front to fakies are still off the double up. I still don't understand it, especially back then. But like when you watch Spray, you're just like, you're 20 feet in the air, dude.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah, Mike's Weddington's is probably my favorite.
So, talking full lengths, I mean, do you think you've been in production, you've been on the wakeboarding side, you've done a lot, been in the industry. Is there any path you see to having full length films being? I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier, but like,
I don't know.
Is there a formula? Is there a way,
It's such a weird time to be in media and to be creating right now. I don't know. I have ideas that I think would be great. I don't know how you sell them. I don't know how you make money at them. It's just such a weird, because at the end of the day, I mean, we can do stuff for fun, and like do small, like Instagram 30-second whatevers, but like to go shoot a film is an investment. I mean, it's money, it's your time, it's all this stuff. So on some level, you have to at least recoup that, and I don't know. It's certainly not in action sports. I don't know how you do it.
It's a tough sell to the brands to say.
I mean, I guess you could get sponsorships and stuff, but.
Yeah, but that's the hard part, right? Is to sell it. Is to be like, hey, well, we're going to sell you this full length.
I would do more stuff for sure, but I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I can't figure out how to make money at it. And not that that's the end goal, but
well, you have to at least break even. You have to at least stick with everything involved.
Either you do it through sponsorship, which I don't know how you're going to do that, or you hope you get 20 million views on YouTube or something. I don't know. It's just such a weird landscape right now, and I think not just action sports, but I think a lot of the industry is trying to figure that out. Trying to figure out, are feature films still a thing? What are TV shows these days? Like all that's. It's just like we're in this weird world where like studios and individuals are creating the same caliber of content, and one's investing billions of dollars and one's investing $1,000.
Yeah, I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more because we were talking about that, I think, before the podcast, where it's like you have a brand and they want to create, whether it's a media company or whatever, they want to create their content. But then you're almost competing against these athletes who are beginning to realize or already have realized, hey, me, myself, can be more powerful than the whole conglomerate.
Yep.
So it's, I guess, what's the path forward? What do you see continue? Like, how is that going to continue to evolve?
Well, I don't think it's going to stop. Yeah. I don't think it's going to slow down. I think it's going to speed up. I think it's again like talking about trends and reaction times and stuff like that. Like I was talking about when we were making videos or writing articles, there were no comments. You would wait for a month to see what people would write in, or you would go experience people and they'd tell you they liked it or they didn't like it. Now it's like literally an hour. Like you post something, your most watches and your most hits are within the first hour, and comments and all of that stuff, and then it's gone forever. So it's a totally different mindset, and I see that shrinking, and I see everything happening much more quickly. And I think when I look back on on films and long form and feature films and action sports films, I now look back at them as art pieces and as moments in time, right? And so they are representations of a year of people's lives now, and it's like no one. I assume like kids probably don't want to watch these things. They're so long. They don't even have DVD players or whatever. But for the people that lived through it, they're emotional. They're remembering their lives back then. There was probably everybody was coming of age and doing just living life together, and it was amazing. So it's fun I think for our generation to watch them, but I don't know how they live on. I don't know how it continues.
It's weird because like the content now that a lot of people are consuming is, like you're saying, so short, so quick, so fast, and doesn't live for very long. So if a piece of content doesn't hit you right in the face immediately with something that entertains you, I think the appreciation is just gone for something that's longer. Yeah, it's disposable. And it's so easy to get the next thing that is just a little bit better and a little bit quicker. And so it's like, how much quicker can we go? Like, how much faster can this move? You know what I mean? I'm here for it, dude. I love it. Like, you just plug me into the Matrix. I'm ready to go, dude. Like, I want to be like as fast as it moves. Like, I love future stuff. Like, I want to be always as far ahead of it as possible. But I'm also I'm not an early adapter of software. I'm an early adapter of hardware. I wait for a couple years before I really get into like any sort of social media. I'll let it chill out and actually survive. But I think what's going to happen
and this is sort of off topic, totally different podcast, but I think what's going to happen is actual life is going to come back. And I think actual life is going to make a resurgence, and it's going to be exciting again. It is exciting, but it's exciting while you're doing this. And I think all this sort of generative AI stuff is going to create so much content, so diluted, so not real, that actual life becomes what you want.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that is actually pretty on topic, because it's like, I was talking about this the other day, and it's like the pendulum, I think, is going to have to swing back at some point, because like you said, there's going to be so much content and so much stuff that's just like jumping at your face. At a certain point, it's, well, wait, the real thing that I touch, feel, and experience is like actually, engaging with me more than just like all this BS content.
And it's all trends, and it's all part of that, like people filming themselves doing stuff, and then trying to put it out there, but it's not going to be the same. And I don't know. I don't know where that goes. Nobody does. I'm here for it though. Yeah. I'm like super interested in it, but it's just not my, it's not my medium. It's not, I don't get how to create for it, I sort of like did all my creation in these times. And like, I have like specific rules for what I will post on social media, when I will post, like, I only post foil content. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like very siloed. I only post on Fridays or Saturdays.
Why is that? Why you got?
I don't know. I just like I like constraints.
Like, so you're not gonna post every day.
No,
you guys are like
I post once a week if I post.
Yeah.
And it's only foil content, and it's only on a Friday or a Saturday, maybe a Sunday. But like I don't know. I just like, if I don't, I'm obsessed with it. If I don't give myself rules, then it's just like I'm off. I get really like.
Yeah, that's me. I just don't have those constraints. So maybe some notes I should be taking right now.
I have my obsessions and other things like foiling.
Yeah, let's talk foiling, I guess.
Okay.
So, I'm curious. You foil, you said 2 to 3 times a week we were talking. Mm-hmm. So, how did you, kind of start diving into that foil life?
So, Jeff McKee introduced me to foiling, and Slingshot had made their sort of initial round of wake foils, and they're very different than they are now. But they were sort of in the forefront of that for wakeboarding or for water sports and behind a boat. And so I kind of got into it, and then me and Dishman had a boat, and he was like, let's learn to foil. And I was like, okay. And so we would go out, he lived on Lake Maitland, or he had a boat on Lake Maitland, and so we would go out, and it was just like, if you want to go out for an hour and ride, you ride until you figure this thing out, because it's hard. It's not like it's not a wake surfer where you stand up and that's all you got to do. Like, it's like you got to learn the balance.
Touchy.
It is a point. You're balancing on a single point, and the board is like the joystick, and you have to figure out how to keep it, very balanced the whole time. So we did that for a couple weeks and just figured it out. And then I got really into it, because it's just like, it is that thing for me now that's just like surfing or whatever, but now I can do it on the water. Like, you're surfing on the water, and you're doing all your surf turns that you want to do out there that you could never do on a wake surfer kind of thing. So,
yeah.
I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think, there is this one guy in the comments who hates foiling. Like, I swear, every podcast that comes up, he just comments like, fuck foiling. I hate foiling. Which, respect. I guess if you can hate something that much, good for you. But to me, I like wakeboarding. You can do it at 60 years old or whatever, and like, you can go, wake to wake and stuff. But the slams are definitely, they can get bad, and that doesn't mean you can't go carve around and all that stuff. It'd be fun, but like, to me, wake surfing, I don't think would scratch the itch of people who wakeboard, because it's just
a little surface area of about
a little
10
surface
feet
area. Is it really? I don't know. I'm going to stop talking right now. But foiling, like, I think that there's so much more to it. Like, you could go wave to wave. You can, hijack waves. It's harder to figure out. It takes time. You got different wing options. Like, there's all sorts of, different paths you can go down. Several people can do it at once. Like, I don't know. It just seems like it has more, not longevity, but more options, I guess.
It's low impact.
It's low impact.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm 45, so I'm like an old guy doing action sports still. But like, it's funny, we were talking about it. I was like, man, it's really come full circle. I'm making my own action sports videos again, like after going away for 20 years or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, so what what's cool about the boat, and to your one foil hater on your comments.
Shout out that guy.
So for me, like, I get a kick out of the boat. I grew up on lakes. I like love being on a lake, and it's just so much fun to be in the water. Like, we're doing this wing. Have you seen the foil wing thing?
The one you hold really close to you?
Yeah.
See, I'm not sold on that one.
It's a huge wing, right?
Yeah,
And it's a wind sport, so that's a totally different scene.
Yeah.
But so I go out, I swim out a mile into my lake, and I sit with this wing until the wind comes, and then I just sit out there and just ride all day by myself in the middle of the lake. It's pretty cool. But for the boat, like, you never looked at the waves behind your first wave. You never were like, that's a thing I can ride, you know? And now all of a sudden, if you drive a circle in your lake, you have a skate park, you have a little pump track now, and you're just out there just like, oh, there's energy back here. I can like sit like 20 waves back, and it's like dead silent and surf in my lake. Like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, it takes a long time to get there, and it takes like, there's a lot of like very like finesse moves that you have to learn. Like, it's not immediate, and it's hard. Like, you're not throwing someone a foil and going like, go. Like, you need somebody that knows what they're doing to teach you. But like, once you get it, like, it's so hard and so rewarding that you're just like, oh man, I can just do this for a long time.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And especially now, like, when I started foiling, it was very much like Gen 1, you know, and we're in this time in the sport right now where the technology, every year, it's like pre-twin tip wakeboarding. Like, every year something comes out and everybody's riding goes woof, like that because of a new shape or a new board or a new carbon mass that's more rigid, you know, like all these weird little technical things. And then something comes out, and it literally within a month, everybody's like just ripping. So
yeah, I mean, talk about a sport that's in its infancy. You know, the toad. I mean, obviously you're not toad, but like on lakes and stuff behind boats, like that is just, we are very, very, very young when it comes to all that stuff. So like all those technical achievements each year is going to change it, like you're saying, you know, kind of dramatically.
Yeah, I don't know. I do it all. Like, I like to do the saltwater stuff, and I'll tow in and learning to do all the different. There's like so many like different aspects of it, from like just boat or like in the waves, or they have this thing called downwinding where it's like this huge board. You're like 2 miles out in the middle of the ocean, just snowboarding in the ocean. So it's like there's a lot, and winging, you know, like, so there's all these, like, it's not like it's moving in a direction singularly like wakeboarding. It's like doing this, and then it's like splintering out into like wind sports, and then there's surfing, and then there's behind the boat, and then there's 2 miles out in the middle of the ocean. And I want to do it all. Like, you gotta, like, everything's like, ooh, that looks fun, you know?
Yeah.
But it's all different equipment. But it's cool. It's like, I always tell people, it's like everything that you imagined hoverboarding being in Back to the Future 2 is what foiling is.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. You're hoverboarding.
Has nobody designed a look-alike to make it look
I'm
exactly
sure they
like
have.
that?
Yeah.
They should.
It's kind of like, it's more like Biff Tannen's hoverboard than it is Marty McFly's hoverboard.
Yeah, freaking Biff, dude. So how long can you pump for?
Oh man, I don't know. I think I can get 100 waves back. I ran out of lake on Lake Butler.
Wow.
Pumping. Or going waves back.
Yeah.
So I don't know how far I was back, probably 50 waves. But dude, I'm ready. Give me a long, huge...
Is there a world record for some of this shit or no?
No.
You should set one.
I know.
Did you just right now?
I might have. I think so. But yeah. No, but that's what's cool, man. Like, the boat is a wave machine for me now. It's not a wake, it's a wave machine. So we're out there, and like I can like drive little like kinks and like little barrels, and then like I can throw a little like triangle splash to the rider 10 waves back, and he'll see it coming, and then you go and like hit the lake.
You can air off of it,
yeah. It's cool, man. It's really fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch the progression of, you know, foiling behind the boat.
Yeah.
I mean, you see what Noah Flegel's doing. He just did a 3-shove.
Yeah.
And like, obviously we're just scratching the surface now. So
it's such a great tool for it, because it's like that. Same with any towed water sport. There's nothing else where you fall and you get back up immediately and have the same surface area. You know what I mean? And so there's this huge advantage to wakeboarding or wake surfing or foiling to repetition and like falling and getting back up, falling and getting back up. So it's pretty, and teaching and like having somebody on the boat saying like, hey, you like lifted your head wrong or something, So
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Absolutely.
Come over. We'll go foiling.
Yeah. I've done it. I'm not super good at it. So that's kind of
It's probably just the equipment.
it was the driver too. It was I would blame the driver. It was the equipment.
At my house.
I didn't have my Driftline board shorts on, so I wasn't comfortable out there. It was
Not
all
enough
that stuff.
fat sacks in the boat.
Not enough Fatsacs in the boat. Yeah. You know exactly what I was dealing with out there. Oh man, this was a good chat. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap this up here?
No, man, it seems pretty good.
I loved it. Thanks a ton for coming on.
Absolutely,
I had a blast, man.
And like I said before, when we were off camera, man, what you're doing is really cool. Like, it's like I've listened to a few of these before I came, and it's like you're building an archive, like for the sport, and it's like not only for like us as like riders and fans, but like I on the way here, I thought about just how cool it would be to be coming up in the sport right now, and hearing how everybody did it. And having that asset to like pull off of and be like, oh, okay, I just need to go. Like I was listening to Massey's and it was just like, I just need to go like ride with these guys and it'll all work out. You just ride all the time and figure it out, So anyways, really cool, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, thanks a ton for the kind words. It definitely means a lot coming from, especially people like you who've been in the sport for so long and have done so much. It's like, yeah, it's really awesome to be able to sit down and talk with you. And
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for watching.
Do we want to look at the
Yeah. Pull out some tees and stuff because Chase did bring over some stuff.
I brought over some wakeboard stuff.
Yeah. Well, first run through that muscle shirt that you talked about.
This is if you got sponsored by Arnett.
That looks like a piece of women's clothing.
This is the muscle shirt you got, but it was cool. I was very happy.
You remember that Arnett contract? How was that? Remember how much that was per month?
That might have been a little bit. I think
because they were decently big brands.
Yeah, most of these contracts were photo incentive. And then you would get like a couple $100 here and there, especially from like people like just dipping the toe in, but they would advertise with you. So like I had a bunch of reef ads and like I had a bunch, but that was all, Butch was like the guy. Yeah. So if you were like cool with him, you kind of
you'd line it up and link it up. Yeah.
This is it's push process T-shirt. Pretty cool. I don't know how many of these are out here. This is a funny story. I designed the logo for this, and this is an accident. So in Illustrator, I typed this font out, and I accidentally only selected everything except the top 2 points in this font, and then I copied it and pasted it, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And it did all this weird stuff, and that became the logo, and then I made a font out of it.
Wild.
Yeah, pretty
That's
cool.
Sick.
Yeah, an accident. This is an old performance ski and surf T-shirt.
That thing's pretty sick. They should bring that back.
I know. I kind of want to wear this. Here's an old AVE T-shirt. I designed this.
Lions.
Cool.
Wow. That one's sick too. They're gonna bring that one back.
It's pretty cool. I like this shirt. Old cassette shirt, dude.
Here it is.
These are cool. I don't know how many of these exist anymore.
Not many, I don't think.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that is sick.
This one's pretty cool. Smoked Monkeys. Colin Wright's parents' board shop. We were friends, so we went to Portland and hung out with him for a little bit. Got a T-shirt. I don't know how that survived. My mom just threw all my stuff in a box, and that somehow survived.
Thankfully, yeah. That's
old A-Def shirt.
I like that one.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that one. Did you do that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then this is an old performance jersey.
I think you should rock that when you foil.
Pretty funny.
Show off the guns.
Yeah. Anyways.
Oh, love that.
Cool.
Well, yeah, thanks a ton for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And if you sound off in the comments, foil guy, I'm sure we'll see some foil comments in there. If you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, joining the Patreon is the best way to do that. So thank you to everybody on the Patreon. It really does mean a lot. Until next time, see you guys.
Thank you.